When it comes to the world of Sega games, few have been quite as memorable as that of Altered Beast. This extremely early 1988 beat-em-up would not only wow arcade gamers with its visual style, but the title would also end up featuring as the Sega Mega Drive's first ever packing game. The game was loud, proud and in players' faces, which when paired with the title's impressive graphics and awesome transformation mechanics, you could not look at Altered Beast. As unforgettable as this Sega experience was, it would be tough to argue though that the gameplay on offer was any better than average at best, resulting in consumers indulging in an adventure that was more about style over substance. While Altered Beast at times feels slow and clunky, what if I told you there is another arcade beat-em-up which features Altered Beast-like amazing transformations, but mixes them with actual polished, refined, cooperative Streets of Rage-like gameplay. In my opinion, this game deserves celebrating. So hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. This is the story of Metamorphic Force, a game that is basically Altered Beast, the good version. Yeah! As mentioned in the introduction, Altered Beast's significance cannot be argued. Over time, the game has become iconic, and if its impact in the arcade scene, or its place as the Mega Drive's first packing game are not accolades large enough to ensure that it is never forgotten, then the fact that Sega continued to bung it in every collection up until modern day means even modern gamers are still playing this one. The 1988 game by Makoto Uchida was and still is a big deal, but as significant as it was, it would be tough to make a case for the game being his best work. You see, in the following year of 1989, Uchida would develop Golden Axe for Sega, a cooperative side-scrolling beat-em-up with a medieval theme that was mechanically heavily inspired by Yoshihisa Kishimoto's flourishing Double Dragon series. Double Dragon would end up becoming the blueprint game for practically all cooperative beat-em-up games to come, carving the path forward for the likes of Streets of Rage, Final Fight, Turtles Arcade and many more. Altered Beast on the other hand was developed before this style of play had become the standard, which is one of the reasons as to why the title feels more flawed than dozens of other beat-em-ups that were developed just only shortly after. Meaning the main reason people have had to go back to the game has always been for the transformations above all else. With all of this said, this obviously brings us around to Metamorphic Force, a 1993 beat-em-up that was developed by Konami, that takes the coolest feature that is found in Altered Beast, and in my opinion brings the feature to the next level by pairing it with pure beat-em-up bliss. The fact that this is a brawler delivered by Konami in the early 90s likely offers to you a seal of quality with regards of what to expect with this one, with of course the company being renowned for many of the amazing beat-em-ups that would be offered to fans throughout this legendary period. Of course, the best known of this batch of these were massive licenses from outside of gaming, such as the Simpsons arcade game, the Turtles coin-op titles and the astounding 6-player X-Men arcade game. These titles were bright, bold and on the whole simply fantastic, still to this day holding a place in the hearts of many who would make trips to the arcades throughout this era. Metamorphic Force would be cut from the same cloth as these astonishing games, but running from the same arcade board as Konami's Mystic Warriors game, a ninja-themed cooperative side-scrolling shoot-em-up that was developed by the same team behind the likes of Sunset Riders, functioning as a pseudo-sequel if you will. In fact, Metamorphic Force would not be the only beat-em-up that came into existence utilising this board, but also the game known as Violent Storm, another lesser known Konami arcade beat-em-up that we have already spotlighted on this channel in the past. As for Metamorphic Force, the game offers 4-player cooperative, allowing gamers to choose between 4 different characters who all have the ability to morph into different anthropomorphic beasts. These include the likes of Ban, a martial artist who can transform into an ancient Greek minotaur, Claude, a swordsman who can change into a white werewolf, Max, a fighter with a boxing style who can turn into a were-panther, and Ivan, a hunter and wrestler who has the ability to metamorphosize into a werebear, which I guess is the opposite of a care bear. Developed 5 years after Altered Beast, the influence is clear to see, with not only some familiar transformations being present, but ideas once again taken from ancient Greek mythology too. The game is the evolution, or should I say metamorphosis, of what a transformation early beat-em-up like Altered Beast could have become if it saw an early 90s sequel. The game opens up by informing gamers that this title is set in the year 1990 XAD, stating that after many years of peace and quiet, the evil king, ruler of the Empire of Horror, has arisen from the dead. Or should I say, wised from his grave. A mountain is then seen emerging from a stormy sea, with the king shown looking down maniacally from the sky, looking to reign over the world once more. But then the Greek goddess Athena shows up to throw a spanner in his works, with her declaring to the player, you must defeat his evil ways, and that the souls of the warriors and their 4 powerful metamorphic guardians, who contain this evil king in battle many years, have been revived once again to stop the villain. The souls of the 4 guardians return to Earth as brave youths in present time to stop the evil, with the game's attract screen introducing the foursome to potential players. Before the adventure starts, the game declares that one of the most fierce and desperate battles ever is about to begin. So with a promise like that on the table, who wouldn't want to insert a coin into this classic arcade cabinet? After characters have been activated on the character select screen, the heroes are seen being teleported to the mountain island seen in the intro, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers style, bringing gamers to this exciting action-packed video game's first stage. The opening level stylistically features a very similar setting to the opening area that can be found back in Altered Beast, offering a background laden with ancient crumbling pillars and ruins, overall doubling down on the mythological themes that this game is going for. Players will also quickly note that in this X-Men arcade-like beat-em-up, enemies tend to also come in the form of anthropomorphic beasts, meaning that this whole new world relies on metamorphic forces, as the title would suggest. Like Altered Beast, characters that the player controls start off stages in their human forms, but can take their more powerful beast forms by collecting golden statue power-ups, which are either dropped by enemies or found within random chests that are dropped from the sky above. The metamorphosis of playable fighters is particularly cool, as each is enveloped by an explosion of light that fills up half of the screen. Taking a leaf from Golden Axe's playbook, like the small elves found in that game, this title features anthro-rodent enemies that pop up at random times, who can supply the player with items that replenish health, those that increase the player's score, or simply golden statues to allow for metamorphosis. These items will be dropped at random times or can be grabbed instantaneously by striking these prize-carrying opponents. Once again, related Metamorphic Force back to X-Men Arcade, or even Golden Axe once more for that matter, when characters are in their transformed beast states, they can perform screen-filling special attacks that destroy all of the enemies on the screen at once. As players progress through the first stage and into a temple-like setting, it becomes clear pretty quickly that elements of this game all around often look quite Golden Axe-like, aside from just the sack-carrying rodent enemies. The game looks and feels like X-Men Arcade, Golden Axe and Altered Beast all mixed into one, which certainly is not a bad combination at all. Every stage of course has a boss who must be taken down in order to move forward, which once again, like in the X-Men game, one of the titles I persistently will keep referencing, every boss fight opens with actual voice acting, allowing for each of them to deliver a cheesy quote. However, to be fair, we do not have anything quite as awesome this time as I am Magneto, Master of Magnet. The first boss fight takes place against Cabrios, a half-goat anthropomorphic opponent who wields a Grim Reaper-like sickle. While this boss and others offer a nice change of pace and variety of different attacks, one of the best elements included is their death animations, when each of them are defeated. Check out this for example. How satisfying is that? Action moves on to the internals of a fiery, lava-filled cave, where much of the same style action is offered, with more opponents popping up who look rather Golden Axe-like in nature. The high-intensity music that is playing throughout every area also massively adds to the overall intensity this epic affair offers, with a variety of instruments being simulated from electronic guitars to electronic keyboard symphonies. Wow! In this particular cave of fire, in the closing moments players must take down a burning phoenix-like anthropomorph, who can strike players with his sword or take gamers down, taking advantage of his devastating flaming tornado attacks. This whole game looks and sounds freaking great. At points the game also offers bonus stages, this time drawing inspiration from the likes of Final Fight and Street Fighter, where instead of a car, this time fighters must destroy a huge statue within an allotted time. Doing this allows players to regain lost health and gain other benefits such as receiving gold statues for transformations. Stage 3 allows players to move from a fire to an ice themed setting, with more new enemies being introduced into the fold such as anthropomorphic elephants. There are also titans that pop up from the stage backdrop that open their mouths to spit out smaller opponents for the player to fight against. If you have never played this game before, and this section feels a little like deja vu, that would be because this feature appears to have been lifted straight from Konami's earlier X-Men arcade game, which featured sentinels rising up from the stage background and opening their mouth to unleash robotic opponents against the player. It is interesting to see so much familiarity surface throughout Metamorphic Force. The stage also features lasers that shoot players from a background, which I think Konami-wise first showed up in Turtles the arcade game, before finally taking on a chonky heavy robotic opponent who reminds me a lot of the X-Men arcade game's Nimrod boss fight. Stage 4 takes place in a forest-like setting, the sort of region that always seems to pop up in these fantasy-themed brawlers. The stage is all around beautiful and very scenic, and sees other Konami beat-em-up elements included in the game for the first time. For example, when the players jump off a huge cliff edge down to a further layer below. At the end of this area, players must take down a two-headed giant monster. If players are able to deplete this bad mofo's health, eventually he turns to stone before exploding, leading to another satisfying end to a stage. The game also features a super high-speed bonus level that scrolls in much of the same way as the sewer surfing section found in Konami's Turtles in Time. This bonus round though scrolls at an even faster pace as players try and take down as many opponents as possible in a single run. Now, depending on which version of the game you play, whether it be the original Japanese version of the game or newer international release, the title would differ. In the Japanese version, players must simply play a stage involving just one new stage boss. However, in the international version, to allow for additional coin munching, players must now run a boss gauntlet against all previous end level opponents. Once all of these have been eliminated in this Colosseum setting, gamers must face off against a boobylicious, oversized she-devil who attempts to bring death by snoo-snoo to the player. The final stage sees players venturing into the Evil King's Keep, where of course the challenge on offer is brought up yet another notch. The stage is longer than those featured previously, with plenty of enemies in abundance, offering an assortment of those we have seen before. The whole area offers players a more intense challenge in an effort to drain those coins. A mid-stage boss fight eventually occurs against a roboticized skeleton, offering gamers a new foe to compete against. Defeating him reveals that the player has been fighting on a platform throughout the bout, leading to of course a classic beat-em-up lift section, because as pointed out in every beat-em-up video I make, it is illegal to program a beat-em-up without including this mechanic somewhere. I have to say though, I do like the stained glass window in the background. Bloody marvellous, isn't it? Of course, as action progresses, the scene gets filled up with more and more enemies, often filling almost the entire screen at points. As players venture on, it is possible to battle against the Evil King himself, who provides an adequate challenge for competitors. Being a game that is all about Metamorphic Force, this is of course not even his final form though, as upon his defeat, he metamorphosizes into a huge dragon-like beast, offering up the true final challenge for those who want to beat this arcade game once and for all. If, and I mean if, gamers can overcome this fiery onslaught, it soon unfolds that this is not the final challenge at all. And once his dragon form has been destroyed, his soul rises out of his body, offering yet another form that players must try their best to overcome. If players can get the best of him, the Evil King is well and truly defeated in this third phase. Upon completion, as the game's credits roll, the King's Castle can be seen crumbling Castlevania style, with our heroes leaping from the roof above. Soon the game reveals that not only is the castle crumbling, but the entire island that rose from the sea is descending back to its watery depths too. With the title stating, as a result of the fierce efforts of the four guardians, the evil king is defeated. The evil empire has sunk into the deep ocean and the people are freed from its threats. Peace is restored to the world. However, we fear the evil enemy may return someday, so till then the four guardians will lay dormant until summoned upon again. With the game closing out, seeing our heroes ascend back to the heavens themselves, where Athena's shown expressing her pleasure. So that overall is what can be experienced within a playthrough of Metamorphic Force. As you can see, the game perhaps holds the crown of the most refined beat-em-up video game that features anthropomorphic transformation mechanics. While Altered Beast may have been the first game from this genre to include this eye-catching feature, Metamorphic Force will bring it back in true Konami style. With this said though, and the game being of such high quality, perhaps you may be wondering why this game does not get talked about more, but Altered Beast forever stays in the front of our retro gaming consciousness. Well, as stated, apart from Sega bringing back Altered Beast from its grave time and time again, when Metamorphic Force came out, it was never ported to any home consoles, and was left as an arcade exclusive. So the only gamers who got to play this one at the time were those who stumbled across it in the arcade. Whereas Altered Beast was a game that most Mega Drive owners owned in their homes in one form or another. Another factor to add to this game's overall obscurity today is that I feel that it is overshadowed by its much more famous licensed cousins. More people are likely to remember and celebrate the likes of X-Men Arcade, The Simpsons and the Turtles arcade games than they are likely to remember Metamorphic Force, simply due to the prestigious licenses attached to the former. Next, we also have to take into account that this game did not surface until 1993, 6 years after the original cooperative Double Dragon game, with the arcade market now completely flooded with high quality beat-em-ups throughout. So although this was a better game than Altered Beast in my opinion, I do not feel Metamorphic Force stood out as strongly in 1993 as Altered Beast did back in 1988 previously. But today, I think it's the bomb. Thinking about it, Metamorphic Force was packed to the brim with beat-em-up elements we had seen many times before this, but by combining them together and pairing them with the transformation gimmick, retrospectively, it provided us with perhaps the most well-crafted brawler of this theme the world has ever seen. I think the game is criminally overlooked at times and delivers everything you would possibly want from this gaming genre. Metamorphic Force is the natural evolution of Altered Beast, an Altered Beast if you will, or even a metamorphic magnum opus. I challenge you to name me a better transformation themed beat 'em up than this one. This game is the ace of human to anthropomorphic adventures. Anyway, if you enjoyed this one, subscribe and check out my breakdown on the original Altered Beast game and why it is so important to Sega. Yeah, cheerio.